Hey guys, welcome back to this channel Talk with Tyson. And today we have one of an esteemed guest who needs no much introduction. A very humble, down to earth, a very devout and a humble man is none other than Advocate Carlos Alvares Ferreira, the MLA for the constituency of Aldona. And we welcome you today in this show, sir, and thank you for giving us your time. And well, as you can see, Mr. Carlos is very keen on answering some of the questions that we will ask him today, and he has done good research, he has done his homework, he has done the background check, everything. And well, we hope that some of the questions that even many of us will have will be satisfied by this short session that we will have. And so, shall we move to the first question?
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
And you can shoot your questions.
All right. Well, I have written down these questions just for the viewers because I do not want to misquote anything. Well, number one, with the upcoming assembly, what have you planned? What are the planned issues you would address the House?
First is Aldona centric issues, which means of my constituency. The first thing which I have sought questions and answers from the government are relating to our Aldona market, which is in a very bad state, and so I want a time frame within which we can have a new market built up over there. I also am raising issues relating to the constant power failures which we are having virtually 3-4 times a day and every day. And then water problems which we are having from Asnora water which is coming here, breakdown here and there. These are major issues. Roads naturally have to be kept in good condition. That will also be an issue. These are main. There are many other things of Aldona which I have also raised, but these are the main focal points of mine for my constituency. Also, Goa centric, from a point of view of Goa, we are also raising issues relating to the 3 linear projects, the double tracking, this coal transportation, and also your Tanmar power project and the devastation of the forests. These will be the major issues which we are going to be taking up for Goa as a whole.
Okay.
But unfortunately, if you have seen from what has happened this morning, the days of the sessions have been curtailed to 10.
Oh.
Earlier it was 25 days, and where we would have had really good time to expose our what we have already taken time, patience and energy to keep our things ready. But let us see, I think that this is very uncalled for. I don't call it simply unfair, I call it undemocratic, because you are trying to silence the voice of the opposition. You can try to find an excuse to try to curtail a session. What the government could have done is, what the government could have suggested and the speaker could have considered is, even if you want to cite that it is the panchayat elections which are coming and that's why we have to curtail the session, you could have deferred you could have taken a vote on account and deferred it and continued it after the the panchayat elections, and we could have debated, we could have brought up issues, and in good time we could have presented what we had, and instead of trying to push through and bulldoze your budget in this session. Every time you do this, it is trying to silence the voice of the opposition. If the voice of the opposition is being silenced like this, I think democracy will not work effectively.
Okay, and so this is happening for the first time?
Well, you see, the BJP over the last 3 years has, I think 2 or 3 years, has already been curtailing the sessions.
Okay.
And it is just for name's sake that the session is being held and then nothing happens and they just bulldoze with the numbers, and this is not democratic.
Okay, very well. Now moving on to the second question, and I would like to read it very slowly to you. A lot of people have apprehension that the government is weakening the powers of the comunidades in order to grab its land. So there are people who are claiming that the government has no powers to amend Code of Comunidades, and that the amendment can be made only by Comunidad in accordance with Article 659 of the Code.
See, first thing we have to realize that the Code of Comunidades was an enactment which was brought in the erstwhile Portuguese regime. And naturally, being a Portuguese legislation, it will now be subject to the Constitution of India, and Portugal no longer rules over or governs Goa. So this is the first fundamental rule one has to keep in mind. And the arguments which are sought to be made seem to go back to recognizing Portugal as the only source of power who can amend the constitution. I think this must be rid from the minds of most of those who espouse this argument. Secondly, I want to tell you that when I was an additional government advocate way back in 1996, there was a writ petition which was filed by one gentleman called J.J. Rodrigues. He was, if I'm not mistaken, the president or the attorney of the Comunidad of Chicali. Very powerful man, very strong-headed man. He engaged the services of none other than Senior Advocate Joachim Dias, who was the first Advocate General of Goa.
Okay.
And one of the points raised in that petition was the legislative competence of the state government to amend the code.
Okay.
And in that, I was defending the government, despite I being a shareholder, major shareholder of Margaon Comunidad and so many other comunidades I have shares. We are also original Joneros of, the Ferreiras are Joneros of Divar, and the Alvares are the Joneros of Shoram. So you can imagine that I have an affinity for the comunidades. But the fact and the law can't be brushed aside. So I did point out that in terms of the constitution, comunidades are private associations. There are two judgments to back me up on it, full bench judgment of the Bombay High Court also. And also using entry 18 of list 2 of the 7th schedule, which is the state's power to govern over land, and comunidades dealing with lands, that the state government has the legislative competence to amend the code. The High Court in a detailed judgment ruled in my favor and their petition was dismissed. The matter was not carried forward to the Supreme Court. In 1997, Dr. Mishkita, when he was the revenue minister, he tried to have a convention of the comunidades on the request of many of us. I was the president of the Margaon Comunidad at that time. And at the meeting, some people from South Goa started by saying, how did you have this convention? Why did you not have the convention before? Dr. Mishkita said, I have just been elected. You all asked and I have come. Who has not done something before? How can I answer?
Correct.
Then he said, I have come to ask you all for your suggestions on amendments which you would like to make for the code. Then somebody else stood up and said, how can you amend the code? And then I stood up and I said that this is what was the judgment passed last year. And then one member said in there, no, it was not argued well. So I said, when you have the man of a stature of a former Advocate General, who is a senior advocate who argues the case, none other than Joachim Dias, who is a brilliant lawyer. I said, you talk now, sit here, then you say it is bad judgment or bad argument. I said, no, the gentleman who filed a petition is sitting on the dais, Mr. J.J. Rodrigues. You ask him.
Correct.
And you should have challenged this judgment in the Supreme Court. They did nothing about it, even after knowing about it. They say, yes, we know about it, but no. Then, second part of it, the comunidades continuously argue it is an argument by a small group of people, which I say with great respect is misleading a large number of people. And that argument is the comunidades are autonomous, the comunidades are local self-authorities, and also that the code Land Revenue Code does not apply to the comunidades. I want to make this clear. These arguments will take you nowhere. Once we are governed by the Constitution of India, all laws apply to comunidades. And therefore you cannot say that I will recognize Portugal to amend my laws. Number two, one colleague of mine, Alvares Ferreira from Vasco, he filed a writ petition in the High Court canvassing this very proposition, saying that comunidades are not governed by the law and code of Land Revenue Code does not apply. High Court dismissed the petition. After that, he filed a review petition by a very lengthy judgment, turning down each of his arguments. The High Court dismissed the review petition. Once you have this done and dusted, to use a phrase, you can't again and again rake up the same point and keep beating around the bush and flog a dead horse. You are leading these people on a wrong path.
True.
The poor components who are believing and not knowing these facts are getting misled into it. In fact, at one point of time I had advised the comunidades, these are all matters which are past. You look today at what you have and save the comunidades. Taking up issues where you will not find anything to save your blood, you will spill a lot of blood, and then you will have no energy to fight for the balance. By the time you are drained out, you will be finished. So this is what I had advised them, but they seem still belligerent and feel that they could probably canvass their points again and again and going in circles. Now, I want to ask you, anybody can think logically. When there is an amendment to even a law, let us say Motor Vehicles Act, how can the person confer the Director of Transport with powers to amend the law? You understand it? So how can comunidades be allowed to amend the law? Law, the field of legislation is with the legislature. So the legislature alone is competent to make, amend or repeal the law. And they quote Article 659. I will read this because you see what happens, sometimes translations may not be right.
Correct.
So this is in Portuguese. Toda a modificação que, de futuro, se fizer sobre a matéria contida neste Código, será considerada como fazendo parte dele e inserida no lugar próprio, quer seja por meio de substituição de artigos alterados, quer por superação dos artigos revocados ou pelo adicionamento dos que forem necessários. Now, the translation of this is this. Any modification that may be made in future on matter contained in this code shall be considered as being part of the same and inserted in proper place, either by replacing the amended articles or by eliminating of the revoked ones or by addition of new articles as necessary. This simply means if you make a modification to this code, it shall be deemed to be a part of this code. You understand? But doesn't say that the comunidades have powers to amend the code. Second part of it, they rely also on Article 652. That is the one where every 5 years they are supposed to have a meeting of the comunidades, a convention, and that is that convention which I was talking of, 97 convention. Every 5 years in the city of Penjin, on 2nd of January, a meeting shall be held of the delegates of all comunidades to deal with matters of general interest to them, to foster its progress, and to propose to the Governor General some measures in this connection. To foster its progress means to tell what better things can be done, and to propose to the Governor General some measures in this connection. That means what steps can be done, what schemes can be brought in. If you think that under this you can also suggest amendments, nothing wrong, but you don't have to wait for 5 years, every 5 years to suggest amendments. You could meet every year and suggest amendments. So then the government won't wait for you for 5 years to amend the code. And even this article says you will propose it to the governor. So if according to you, you are going to propose it to the governor to make, assuming that you want to make a proposal to amend the code, then it's not the governor now who does it. It is the legislature. So this governor means legislature. But remember one thing. Many people are not aware. I don't even know whether the government is aware. But I know it as a matter of fact because I appeared for the government for many years. I was representing the government of Goa. I was Advocate General, additional government advocate before that, and a government advocate. So I know certain things, plus being a lawyer, practicing lawyer. When Goa became a state in 1987, there is a provision for issuing adaptation orders. Because everything doesn't have, small amendments don't have to be brought before the legislature. So within 1 year, there was a power to the government to issue adaptation orders. And an adaptation order has been issued in respect of the code to replace the word Governor General with the word government. Remember this. Which means now the files will not even go to the Governor General or to the governor, the files will go to the government. And that is how it has come. So therefore, if you have to make a proposal, you make a proposal to the government, not to the Governor General, and some are running to the Governor General to give him some representation and memorandum. It's all right in the constitutional scheme, you are recognizing him, respecting him, giving him, and expecting him to be the custodian of the constitution and doing things, no problem. But don't mislead anyone and keep beating the drum on a dead horse. That's what I say. So, as far as amendments to the code, so I'm making this clear. The government has the power. The government has the legislative competence to amend the code of Comunidad, state government. Now the question is, I saw certain amendments proposed which are very draconian. Those will definitely be challengeable, and the Comunidades can succeed in the challenge on those, where they are forcibly taking and saying that we will take your land on lease even if you don't consent. That is completely wrong, and I would not agree with such kind of thing. If you want to acquire the land and pay them the compensation, but you can't, what is the lease? You can't tell you put this tenant and suffer the tenant in your house. It can't be that. So this is what the government, but I ask sometimes a question. You see, there are a lot of encroachments on Comunidad's lands. How do they come up? They can be with political blessings, or they could also be with blessings of those who are in the Comunidad. Because no stranger will dare enter on your land and start building unless you have got some protection.
Correct.
Look at it the converse side. If the government takes your land and gives you compensation for it, so be it, because it prevents the encroachments. You get money. As against that, you get no money when there are encroachers. They are freely sitting on your land. And what have you done? As landlords, what has the Comunidad done for the benefit of the people all these years? You sitting there like a feudal lord that I am the Bhatkar of this and do nothing. Have you done any contribution? Have you done anything for agrarian purposes? Or you are sitting with the land and you are still blowing the bugle that we are Comunidades, a very old this thing. What is Comunidad? Comunidad are actually cooperative societies where people came together and did cooperative farming. Why the Comunidad got destroyed is the Tenancy Act came in and brought a legal fiction by which the Comunidad was made owner and the tenant made a tenant. Because earlier under the Comunidad code scheme, whoever was given the land was made first a shareholder of the Comunidad. If you are a shareholder of the Comunidad, you are owner, which means you are co-owner. So you can't be a owner and tenant of yourself. Do you ever see that? Okay. But to get over that, that section was introduced in the Agriculture Tenancy Act, and by which the Comunidad suddenly became redundant of the agricultural lands. You understand? So this is what I say, that now with what you have got, the Comunidades can sit together wisely and work out something, because there are some people who are very intelligent people who are in the comunidad. And there are some people who are genuinely desirous of doing things good for the comunidad. So I feel that if they sit together and look at it positively and in the right direction, I think they can salvage what remains of the comunidad instead of fighting a losing battle and misdirecting themselves against this.
Yeah. That was quite a great response. And also, another question that comes to me is, do you feel that the government has been witch hunting, if I can use that word, witch hunting the opposition, like how it's being done across the nation as the ED has done with the Gandhis?
You see, if you look back in history, Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany has a parallel here. It's very clear. You hit your enemies, keep them suppressed, keep your opponents suppressed. If you remember the style of Nazi Germany, if you are not with me, you are against Germany. What happens here? If you are not with the BJP, you are anti-India.
Yeah.
Other side, Hitler spoke about the great fatherland, one Germany. Don't we hear the same thing this side?
True.
Great one India. He spoke about one language, he spoke about everything, making it one. And every time we are hearing this repeated chorus, one nation, one language, so everything will be one, everything. One election, remember this, what will happen? So this is the way. When they started by attacking even the opponents. And I have seen, and the nation and the world watches, that every investigative or even a police machinery is being used against the opponents. You speak up against the government, they will find that something of yours is illegal and issue a notice. If you speak up against certain tall leaders, somewhere your family down the line who may be involved in some government post will be transferred, or somebody will be suspended, somebody will be arrested. This is the norm of the day. And I think this is the time when the courts must stand up, the judiciary must stand up to such type of, I call them atrocities. Because if you have seen, there have been cases where people have been picked up, arrested, and when it came to charge sheeting, the court has said there is no material. I would ask the court, why did you deprive bail? Why did you refuse bail for so many times when the person asked for bail? If there was no case, you should have just granted the bail. There is sometimes a trend in the judiciary, with respect I must say, which according to me I don't agree with this trend. No, the investigating agency requires more time. I don't agree with this. You should not arrest the person unless you have the material. You can't first take a person in custody and say, I will search for the material and I will find it after 1 month.
That makes sense.
It doesn't. So with great respect, I disagree with the judiciary when they behave in this manner. And I think that we should stand up, because it's only the judiciary which is our last hope in any democracy, which can stand up for the fundamental rights of the citizens and protection of human rights. So I agree with you that this is not just witch hunting, it is also oppression and suppression of the opposition.
Correct.
So that no one will open his mouth, no one will speak against the government.
Very well. Now, another very interesting question that I think so a lot of the viewers will be excited to listen, and that's something on the POGO Bill. Okay, if I can state it very clearly, one of the most exciting and awaited bill, that is the POGO Bill, a lot of hype is created that you supported POGO Bill prior to election, we have not found any statements of yours in any video recording stating that you support POGO Bill. In the interview with Nandan Kutsarkar, you have said that POGO Bill or POGO can be defined but not POGO Bill. What is your comment?
If you watch the video, I'm clear on what I have said. I clearly accept what you say, that I had said the POGO can be defined. And I rest my case.
The end. Okay. And the speaker has indicated that the POGO bill will not be tabled in this assembly session. Now, what is your comment on the speaker's statement that the bill requires scrutiny?
See, any bill which is brought before the House, including the government's bill, this is a private member's bill because we are not in the government, so any bill we may move from the opposition is called a private member's bill. So whether it's a government bill or whether it's a private member's bill, they need necessarily go through a legal scrutiny. It goes through a scrutiny in the law department.
Okay.
Now, if it is their bill which they want to fast track, they will fast track it. If it is our bill, they don't want to fast track, they may slow track it. You understand? No? But the procedure of scrutinizing a bill is necessary because the question comes whether there is a legislative competence for the government to bring in this, whether there are any provisions which offend any constitutional articles. So all this they will do it. Of course, I don't want to say that every law which is passed, brought in by the government, would not offend the constitutional provisions. They have also brought in laws which we have challenged and got provisions struck down as being offending certain provisions of the Constitution or maybe fundamental rights of the citizens. But that is a process which has to be done. And now it's up to the speaker to bring it in this session or whether to defer it for the next session. But the speaker has to finally give a ruling on this. And once he gives it, then we will be able to take a call on whether he is right or wrong. But if he has made a statement that the bill requires to be scrutinized, I think that is the correct procedure followed. And this is parliamentary procedure which has to be followed for scrutiny of a bill.
Okay. Now, also, what is your stand on the POGO bill?
See, you must realize I am now elected on a national party, which is the Indian National Congress.
Okay.
And once the bill is tabled on the floor of the House, the Congress party will tell us how to take this forward. Remember one thing, the Congress party always stood for the people of Goa. Our Congress party always had protection of Goa in mind. Congress party always helped achieve self-sufficiency for the Goans and did lot of progress and development. And that is why what you see today, lot of things, good things are brought in by the Congress party. Now, I'm not talking of cosmetic things, I'm talking of good things which have touched the lives of people. So therefore, I know that the Congress party will always think good of Goa and the Goans. But being a loyal congressman, being dedicated, and I will have to abide by the decision of the Congress party. Okay. As much as my colleagues who are in the Congress party would have to abide. So whatever direction they give us is how we will look at it. But it is, I'm repeating, don't immediately jump to conclusion. My personal opinions may be varied, but when we have to go to the floor of the House, it is only when we see that bill which is tabled on the House, how it comes then and how the party directs us to take a stand is how we will be able to take it forward.
Okay. Well put. And also, I think so, this is the last question for the day. What is your view on the deprivation of OBC in the Panchayat elections?
The deprivation of OBC reservation is most unfortunate. Can I say something in Konkani also?
Yeah.
OBC lok mulole samke barik te barik lok. आनी ओबीसी लोकांक तुमी रेकग्नायज केला, मानून घेयलात की ओबीसी लोक आसात, कित्याक तांकां कित्याक स्टेटस दिवपाक, तांकां वयर काडपाक. तूं ग्रासरूट डेमोक्रेसीन तुका थिंगा कातोच जाल्यार तांकां, तूं चोळोन दिना जाल्यार तांकां वयर सोरोन दिनात जाल्यार तूं ओबीसी म्हूण कितें उलोवपाक सोदता. तूं लोकांक कित्याक फटोवपाक सोदता. इलेक्शन टायमार फकत वोट मागता आनी तेंगे चान्स आसा तेन्ना सरपंच जावपाक, ZP जावपाक तूं तांकां काट कोत्ता आनी उडयता. भायर रिजर्वेशन ना, ही दुखेची खबर. ही ओबीसीचे लॉस केले ते लोकांनी आनी ओबीसी काबार करूंक सोदतात. आय थिंक इट इज मोस्ट अनफॉर्च्युनेट. पयलीं आमकां सांगलां सरकारान की ट्रिपल टेस्ट, व्हडलें उतर ट्रिपल टेस्ट उतर मेळटा तांकां सांगपाक, ट्रिपल टेस्ट कोत्तात म्हण, देखून आमकां टायम जाय म्हण. हायकोर्टान गेले आनी सांगलां पावसा पासून आमकां सांगपाचें पावसा पासून. हांव सांगचें सत्री दिवंक येतात म्हण इलेक्शनाक. सो this is one thing. Number 2, स्टेट इलेक्शन कमिशनान बरयलां ऑर्डरान, आमी मागलां सरकारा कडेन आमकां डेटा दी, सरकारान डेटा दिल ना. आनी सुप्रीम कोर्ट जजमेंटान आसा डेटा दिल ना जाल्यार, डेटा हातीन ना जाल्यार तुमी चलात, ओबीसीक रिजर्वेशन दिनाका आनी तुमी चलात फुडें. हांव एक प्रश्न विचारतां, आमचे गोंय ओबीसी रिजर्वेशन पयले पाटी येवंक ना, आमचे स्टेटूट आतां काल जाल ना. तुमी कितले पंचायत इलेक्शन केले, थिंग ओबीसी लोकांक ओबीसी रिजर्वेशन दिले, सडनली ते नाच जाले, ते खंय गेले, पुर्तुगाला गेले. यू अंडरस्टँड? ते अजून आहा थिंगा. देखून हांव अपील करता तांकां, हे पाटी आतां भिवन तुमकां पासून रिजर्वेशन दिली जाल्यार तुमी भायर येयात आनी तांकां दाखोयात आनी तेंगे जाग्यार घालात तांकां असले सरकाराक आनी चान्स दिनाका. तांकां शिकोवपाचें, तुमकां दुखयलें तें तुमी तांकां दुखोवन दाखय, तेंगे घरा धाडात तांकां. कोण येत जाल्यार तेंच्या नांवान वोट मागपाक तेंकां घरा धाडपाचें.
Well, with that we come to an end with this session today. A beautiful time that we have got to learn a lot. Even it reminded me back of my history days when I was learning civics we had in our primary. Those basic things that we had to learn, and this was something very insightful, refreshing, and I hope you guys also go back, do some research for yourself, find out the truth for yourself. We are an enlightened generation, everybody is educated, everyone has access. So I hope you enjoyed this show, and thank you very much, sir, for giving us your precious time.
Thank you very much.